The journey we're taking is the journey within you. Everybody has their own story and their own journey to share. Every journey conceals another journey within its lines, the path not taken and the forgotten angle. Listen to the stories from others sharing their triumphs and struggles that led them to where they are today. Welcome to the journey within you. I am so excited to have Kim here with me today. You guys, I love bringing women in to share their stories. That's the whole purpose in this podcast, is letting people hear about other women's journeys and where it has brought them from their past to today. And so, Kim, I want you to share your story with us.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Laura. I absolutely love that that's the name of your podcast because it is a journey, right? We're all in this journey. And my story is not necessarily unique in the fact that we suffered huge financial losses. A lot of people, especially around 2008, ours was a little bit before that, went through that. What is unique about our story is that we came out the other side as a whole family. We didn't divorce. We still have all of our 5 kids still like us. That I can tell they all want to live around us, and they are all adults now, but they all come home all the time and they spend time with us and they like to do things with us. So I think that part is unique. And I think when you are going through a loss like that, and just some of the losses that we went through, we lost our home. We had to, it went into foreclosure. We ended up moving into a townhome, and I had a traumatic emergency C-section with my 4th son during that time. And we got back to the townhouse the day I was released from the hospital, and my husband had to go off and try and work and earn some money to feed all of us.
Yeah.
And I had a knock at my door, and it was the sheriff, and we were being evicted from that townhome. And so we went from there to a budget suites, and we lived in a budget suites for quite a while. And it was a crazy time. But during that time, we really did some things that kept us together and that kept us with a positive mindset. And I really think that mindset is so important.
Yes.
We were very blessed to be in circles that talked about mindset and growth mindset and moving forward no matter what your circumstances, because anybody's circumstances are just a little snippet in time.
Right.
They don't have to stay that way. Right. And so we were blessed to start learning to do things like not watch the news, right? I mean, how many times do you hear that now, especially with everything going
we're glued to it.
So, yes, don't watch the news. Start listening to uplifting podcasts. Start listening to people's stories like mine or like yours, where you're going through stuff, but you're getting through it and you're getting back up again. You just have to keep putting that one foot in front of the other. And so that's what we did. I mean, my kids, I talk about this story a lot with women. When my kids were little, they were not allowed to ever say the word can't. It was a bad word in our home because I taught them that can't is a matter of ability and may is a matter of permission. So they were allowed to ask, may I do something? Or you may not do something, or something like that. And they actually grew up calling cantaloupes may not elopes because it was that ingrained into them. And so
that they couldn't say the word.
That's right, because we just didn't believe in that. We believed that we could do anything that we put our minds to, and that God was going, as long as we were blessing God, God was going to bless us, whether that be putting us in the right rooms with the right people and developing relationships that would help us, whether personally, professionally, physically, whatever it was. We believed that God was going to bless us, and he did. He really did. And then now we have this incredible business.
So, I'm going to ask you, when you were in the budget suites, how many children did you have when you moved in there?
We had 4. So
and you had one was a newborn. I mean, just born.
Yes. Yeah. So just brand new baby. And it was, I am telling you, it was mac and cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. My kids to this day.
What about, did you have to worry like diapers and formula? People don't think about all those needs for a newborn.
It was crazy. So we got very good at, number one, we were not shy about the position we were in, because I think a lot of people who start to go into those kinds of positions, they hide it. We were not. And so we were blessed by the churches that we attended or whatever. We were blessed with things. And we were also blessed in the fact that my husband was a hard worker. He has never shied away.
He didn't give up either.
And so whatever came up, he was willing to do. I mean, I remember one time he had been out of work for like 18 months, and it was was crazy during that time it was literally hand to mouth, digging in the couch cushions, looking for quarters, trying to get the next
Mm-hmm.
gallon of milk, that kind of thing. And he was out of work and he had ended up being offered a job that was not gonna make it financially for us, but we had this huge strong pull that God was like, take this job.
Mm-hmm.
And so he took the job and it was gonna still be, we were still gonna have to figure out how to come up with like $700 a month or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that day I got a phone call from a church that we had been attending, and I had been serving, in different ministries because I love that kind of stuff. That's
Yeah.
who I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
And I had been serving, and I got a phone call saying that they wanted to put me on staff and my stipend
Wow.
was going to be $700. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. I will take
Uh-huh.
it. I don't care. And
Yeah.
I ended up being the nursery director for a couple of years for
Oh,
that church. And
yeah.
it was absolutely just little stories like that all along our journey. God just kept telling us where to go and what to do and put us in people's path and people in our path. And
Right. And
it
did
just
you send your kids to school or did you homeschool?
I homeschooled during that
Yeah.
whole time too, which is a
Yeah.
whole
That's
nother
a
thing
whole
if you've
nother
homeschooled.
bucket. Oh
Yes,
my
it is.
goodness.
Other things, we were in Texas. Texas is very homeschool friendly. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, so there are a lot of resources. There are a lot of moms who are willing to share what they know and
Yeah.
things like that. Some of the states we lived in, because we did move around quite a bit, were not so friendly. And so
Mm,
that opens up a whole nother can of worms. But yes,
yeah.
I did homeschool. Three of my children actually have graduated from homeschool. Two of them at
Wow.
high school chose to go to public school and
Right.
graduated
Right.
public school.
Right.
And only one of them has chosen to go on to university, and he is at the University of Arkansas now. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's so
everybody
good.
else has come into the business. So
Yeah. So that's another way that kept y'all so connected.
it
They
did.
didn't have to see the outside world in a way and not feel, out of place. You made
Right.
them feel good in that space that they were in, no
Yeah,
matter where that space was.
exactly. That budget suites. I mean, the best part about that was it had a pool. So my kids
Can
they
imagine.
didn't care that we were in this little teeny tiny
Yeah.
apartment,
They
basically.
felt like
They
they were on
cared that it
vacation
was
all
a
the
pool.
time. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that, when you start realizing that your home is your family. It's
Yeah.
wherever your family is.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a place. And we learned
Right.
that very quickly because we did have to move so much. And so it was just, we got really good at blooming wherever we were planted.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I actually learned that from being a military wife, because Rob was in the military, and that was a
Was
saying
he?
that we all had, because you never knew where you were going to be sent, or where it was going
Right.
to be, or what kind of housing you were going to be put up in or anything.
Exactly.
So we just looked at everything that happened along our journey as
So
an
that
adventure.
built you for what was to come, for
It did.
sure.
It
Because
did.
that, okay, you know how to handle this, you know how to pack, you know how to get going, you know what to do.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
will say that God is such an incredibly loving father to us, the way that he prepares us for
Right.
whatever is coming.
Mm-hmm.
We may not know it at the time. We don't understand it at the
Right.
time.
Right.
Sometimes we may not even ever get to see the answer or the end of it, but it's beautiful to look back and see how he just walked us
Mm-hmm.
through. At the time, it was not fun. At the time, it was
No. Oh, I can
on the
imagine
floor,
hard days
in a puddle of
crying.
tears. Yes,
Yeah.
and pulling my hair out. So,
Yeah.
but now it's absolutely beautiful to see how he brought us through all of that.
Yeah. All of that issue. Now, so you're in home-based Texas. That's your
Mhm.
home. You've mostly been in Texas most of your
Yeah,
life. Were you
yeah.
born and raised in Texas or?
No, Rob and I are actually both from Montana.
Ah,
And yeah, and so we met,
I didn't know
he had
that.
come home on leave one time, and I was his waitress, and that's how we met.
Well,
So
oh, that
yeah,
beautiful waitress story.
I know.
That's cool. That's so good. I love that. See, there's parts I don't know about you, so this is great.
Yeah,
So you did waitressing and you met him.
we met, and it was actually true love at first sight.
I
We
know
were
that.
engaged and married 3 months to the day that we met, and
Yep.
we have been together ever since.
Same. We
Yeah,
met in
it was
January,
32
married in March.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
so beautiful. I
it
love
is.
that. And so how long did you stay in Montana?
I immediately put in my 2 weeks. He had to get back to California, and so I put in my 2 weeks
Mm.
and flew right out to California with him.
Yeah.
And then we decided we were going to go get married, and so we eloped. The only person that knew we were eloping was his commanding officer, because he had to know
Had
where
to
Rob
tell.
was. And so we told all the people in California we were going back home to plan the wedding, and we told all the people at home we were going on a ski trip. And we called them from Hawaii and said, "Hey, we're
We're
married."
done.
And we didn't see our family for 5 months because we were at
Wow.
his next
You
duty
had to
station.
be. Yeah.
And so we went back at 5 months, and that was another key that we learned very quickly is how to cleave to each other, because it was just us out in California. We
Yeah.
didn't. My mom wasn't there.
Nobody around.
Nobody. And so we literally just really learned how to work together as a team and really cleave to each other and understand that it's our marriage and our.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
You don't have anybody to fall back on.
yeah.
You got to make it work.
Yeah.
What about how long did you stay in California? Then where did you go?
We stayed in California for 5 months. Then we went to Maine for about a year and a half. We were
Oh,
in
cool
Warren,
state.
Maine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very cool state. We
Yeah.
went clear up very, very
Tip
northeast.
top.
Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
had to go south to get into Canada.
Yeah.
And then we went from there to Okinawa, where our first son was born. We were in Okinawa for
Wow.
3 years, and that was an
3 years.
incredible experience.
I can imagine
Um,
so.
and I flew back and forth. That's when we started building our real estate business before we lost everything. I started flying back and forth with my newborn son by
Wow.
myself. And I would
Independent
come
here.
back and buy a
Yeah.
property and, start
Yeah.
fixing and get the contractors going and stuff, and then fly back over to Okinawa.
That's some
That,
hard work.
it was
I've had
crazy because,
rental property and that's not easy. And I'm like, okay, I'm done with that because I just couldn't
yeah,
deal with how they come in and destroy it and you have to make it
sure,
over and then you
sure.
fix it again. But not always
Yeah.
the case. But I was like, okay, I've had my fill of that. I'm done. We can try something new now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was all prior to before
hmm
you lost everything.
Yeah, so we did all of that. We ended up in Texas for about 6 years, and my two sons were born when we were in San Antonio. We lived in San Antonio for about 6 years.
That's right. You were telling me about that you
And
lived there.
so we had our three kids, and then that was right when I didn't even know I was pregnant yet. Robb had left the military. He got out of the military because we were going to go make a go of, we wanted to do some financial
Continue.
security stuff.
Yeah.
And so we got out, found out I was pregnant, of course, after he left the military. So
Of
no
course.
insurance, no anything.
Nothing.
And that's kind of what started happening. We started a financial securities company with a friend. That did not go very well because
Mm.
we trusted somebody we shouldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that kind of started a spiral downhill. And I'm not going to blame it all on that,
No.
because we were young, dumb, and rich. Basically, we were
Yeah.
rich, and we did not make sure we were stable. We did not do all the things, of course, that you do now when you're a little bit older and a little bit wiser. And so we just had a lot of fun. I mean, we had a
Yeah.
lot of fun with our kids. And then once that downward spiral started, it happened very quickly. I mean, we lost everything in a matter of probably 12 months, maybe. It happened very, very quickly.
Did the kids ask a lot of questions? I mean, were they curious to why things were changing so quickly?
Yeah, a little bit, but the way that I always talked to them was that everything was working out in our favor and that everything was going to be an adventure. And
Wow.
so we talked to them. I think the one thing that I could remember was a really big deal, and it still gets talked about to this day, is we had to sell a bunch of like bigger toys that they had,
Yeah. Yeah.
move them and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them was a rocking horse. It was my oldest son's rocking
Oh.
horse, and his name was Socks. We named him Socks.
Yeah.
That still gets brought up, that we had to sell socks. So I know that was
That
like
was an
something
impact.
he remembers. That's an
Yeah.
impact that he remembers. But we tried to really instill in our kids that it's not about the things and it's not
Right.
about the place, it's about the people that you're with. And so wherever we went, we tried to do it together. Like if my husband had to go work somewhere, if he had to leave the state or whatever, we tried to keep that to a minimum so that we were always together.
Always together.
Our family was the rock.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that could have so easily gone the other way, but y'all made the choice to do it differently because you wouldn't be where you are today if that had gone the other way.
Not
That's
at
for
all.
sure.
And I think the world really tries to get you to go the other way.
Yes.
I can remember having massive amounts of debt collectors call and tell me to get a divorce, that it was going to ruin my credit if I stayed married. I would have a better chance if I got
That's
divorced.
awful.
We could separate things, all these things. And I kept saying, this just doesn't feel right,
No.
And I remember one time where I was like, God, I don't know what you want me to do. I was literally on my knees crying in the middle of the night. And I was like, I don't understand why we're going through this. why is this so hard? Because one of my kids that day, this is another hard story. We rationed food. I mean, when we
Yeah.
had food, we rationed it. And he was sitting there doing this. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm hungry, so I'm eating an invisible sandwich. And
Oh,
that broke me.
you
That was like,
lost it.
that totally lost it.
Yeah.
And that night I was like, okay, am I supposed to leave? I don't understand what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? And all I kept hearing was stay and walk through the fire. Don't sit in the fire,
Oh,
walk through the fire. And
mm,
so that's why I always tell everybody, if you're going through hell, go through it. Don't
yeah.
sit there.
Yeah.
Don't build a
Don't
house.
beg to get out of it. Don't,
No, just go.
show me how. You can
Yeah.
ask, and you can let him know that it's scary. He
Very scary.
knows, he's going to be with you through this. I know
Yeah,
that had to really hurt to see him do that, because you're thinking, that's my child. I need to feed him, and I
it
can't.
did. It
And I
did.
can't
And
give him what he needs at the moment.
I remember when we first started, kind of our business started taking off and we started making money, and we took all of the kids out for really nice
A
steak and
big meal.
a real, yeah, just really. And we're like, they're like, what can we get? Because before that it was like, you had to make sure it was
We're all
okay.
going to share this, and we're going to do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it was like, you guys order whatever you want. And
Oh.
that was such just a fun, kind of relaxing time, because
Hmm.
it wasn't stressful anymore. It
Right.
wasn't,
Right. They got to laugh and just eat
yeah,
and enjoy the meal. Yeah. Without
yeah,
thinking, okay, I need to share this with my sister or my brother. And
yes,
we just get a
exactly.
portion. Yeah. And
Yes,
share the drinks or water. You drink
yes.
water.
Lots of water,
I
lots
used
of
to say
water.
that all the time when we sat down for meals. Water, and this is the section you can order from.
Exactly.
Because there's always one that wants the highest meal on the menu. And I'm like,
Yes,
what are
there
you
is.
doing? And I tell her that all the time. I'm like, I know what you're going to order. It's going to be the most expensive thing on the menu. And I don't know why she does that. She's just drawn to it for some
Yeah,
reason, but she wants to eat it all, have a great meal.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so you've got through that part of your life, and where you were struggling really hard. And then what turned when you started growing again and seeing the light, maybe I should
So
say.
we always have believed in owning your own business, always. I really think it's really hard to um break into any kind of success unless you start really owning your own business
Mm-hmm.
at some point, whether it's a side business, primary business, traditional network marketing, whatever it is. I think everybody needs to own their own business. And
Mm-hmm.
we've always followed that path. And so the Lord just really directed us and set us up with relationships. And we met a gentleman 20 years ago who knew it was going to lead to what it led to now,
No.
who was in the same business that we're in now, which is the commercial water business. And it was all about relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
so we met that gentleman, and that ended up introducing us to other people who were in
Mm-hmm.
it. And so we just started learning about it. When we couldn't afford to do anything, we learned a
You
lot.
learn, right?
Yeah,
Feed the
you
soul,
read,
feed the
you
mind.
listen.
Yep.
Exactly. You get
Yep.
in those rooms and
Yes.
you're quiet, right? Never be
Yep.
the smartest person in the room and never talk the most in the room. Always
Yeah.
listening. And so we just really learned a lot and got around a lot of different people. And it got to the point where our kids were older, and we'd always wanted to have some kind of a legacy business. And we said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is the time. And we actually launched our business during COVID,
That's
when
crazy.
everything else was folding, and ours took off like crazy. And once again, God had us back in Texas, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like, thank God he did, because Texas was one of the only states that was still open, right?
Wow.
There
Yeah.
were still
Yeah.
businesses
So
open
there
and
was
there were still
purpose in that.
operations.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things that made us scrappy, I guess, or gave us grit that whole time, gave us that during COVID, because a lot of the front parts of businesses were open, but were closed, but their warehouses were all still open.
Yeah.
My boys are go-getters, and we raised them to be that way. And so they would go around to the back and they'd start talking to the warehouse guys. Well, during COVID, the warehouse guys happened to be the owners, because people couldn't
Because they were
necessarily
the
come
only
over,
ones
but the
working.
owners were there
Yeah.
making sure their businesses
Yeah.
were still running. And so it was such a huge, huge blessing. And it just took off like crazy. And we just keep growing exponentially year after year. We've, been in
Mm.
business just a little over 4 years now, and it's been amazing.
So
So,
explain your business, what it
okay.
is.
Sure. So, the 5-gallon jugs that you go into waiting
Yeah.
rooms and you'll see those coolers and stuff.
Yeah.
We do not do that. We get rid of those for businesses. We come in and we put in a really sleek, nice looking point of use cooler. It taps right into their water source. It gives it the way our water is better is it's filtered. It's like ultra filtered.
Right.
We
Got
do
a
all
nice
different kinds
filter.
of filters
Mm-hmm.
depending on what that business needs. But our machines do a lot of different things. They have
Mm-hmm.
ice, they have cold, they have hot, they have ambient, they have sparkling, they can do
Ah,
distilled. I mean,
how
we just
cool.
do whatever that business needs. We really
Yeah.
go in and we talk to those business owners and we find out what they need,
You
what they're using,
customize it.
and we customize it for them. And that's one of the things that sets us apart is we're family operated. We totally understand as a business standpoint from a business owner that we need to do whatever works for them, not try
Right.
and make them fit into our box.
Right. Right. And that's so good. Now, do you have franchises or do you just
So
do
right now we are looking at, I would like to get, I don't know if franchise is necessarily the right word yet.
word? Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
but I would like
Or
to start
partners or
helping, yeah,
yeah.
partnerships, mentorships, I don't know,
Yeah.
something. But yes, we do have plans to mentor people in all 50 states, and get some other families going also because we have been so blessed. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to do the same thing for other families because
Mm-hmm.
this is just one of those things where you can make a business out of anything. You don't even know it's out there.
Right.
You
Right.
stumble into it.
Oh, I so
And
believe
so,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we do have
I
plans.
mean,
It'll probably be in the next 12 to 18 months, but yeah,
people laugh and think, what is your business? We do chainsaw training. And they look at you
exactly.
like, chainsaw training? And I'm like, yes, for over 30 years, that man has been successful in doing chainsaw training. And that is our business. And it has thrived and done so well. And now we've had to shift, but
Right.
God is opening doors for him and doing the virtual. And
Right.
which is very still, 2020 brought that into our world big time. So now it has carried on because people say, hey, this is easier. I can set
Yeah.
my employee down and they can get the training and boom, they're done. They don't have to
Yeah.
schedule all the people coming in. They can do one at a time, two at a time. So we really have been promoting and doing, and then we have two guys out there now doing our training for us to help keep the business growing
Sure.
and doing. But it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, they're like, and so I say, yeah, you just, if you have a passion, don't be
Mhm.
afraid to do it because
Yeah.
it can bring you income, and I think God gives you those talents and we sometimes ignore the talent. We think it's not worthy or going to make any sense to other people. Well, if
Yeah.
it makes sense between you and God, that's all that matters, right?
I think the other thing that's important that I just heard you say too was that you guys adapted, and
Yeah.
that's a huge skill that you can learn it.
Yeah.
It's not just an innate thing; you can actually learn it. And one of the books that I read years ago is called "Who Moved My Cheese," and
Hmm.
it's a little analogy about two little mice, but
Uh,
it's really good in teaching you how to start thinking and becoming adaptable. Because sometimes I see business owners hanging so, they're clenching to their
yeah.
passion so hard that they
Yeah.
don't want to change anything, even though everything
Right.
around them is changing. And so
Right.
you'll see people start to get into that downward spiral because they're
Hmm.
too afraid to let go and change something. So I think that's super important. I love that you said that.
Well, I had to have that conversation with him in 2020 because he was like, how do you do virtual chainsaw?
Yeah,
Because he's hands on and he's
sure.
an
Yeah,
excellent teacher. And he was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, you're going to have to do that because if we want to keep something rolling here, we've got to figure out the new
right,
ways. And
right.
so he started investing and doing and getting the equipment. And now he's got an amazing studio in there. I just love it. And he's taught me, and we've learned to do these things, virtually. So he's growing and growing in that line of work now, still being able to do his passion. I mean, he's not out in the
Right.
woods, but at least he's still getting to communicate and teach what he knows. And so, yeah, you have to pivot. You have to
You
learn
do.
and be flexible. And that's a word that I adapted a long time ago, being flexible and
Yeah.
smile. It's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. It's going to work out. And
That
I
was
know
the other
God's in
thing
all the
too.
details.
Exactly. And that was the other thing too, is that you don't have to be miserable just because you're
Right.
going through
Oh, I hate that when
crap,
I see
right? You
that. Oh,
don't
I
have to
hate
be
that.
miserable. It's
And
a
that's,
choice.
yep. And I was asked that all through since August. How are you smiling so much? I'm here and he's
Yeah.
here and God has held us all the way through it. Sad
Yeah.
days, yes. Like you say, yeah, I've been on the floor crying. I've been outside crying. It's not been easy,
Yeah.
but he has led us through it. He's provided every need that we've not lacked one need at all. So, how do you stay in that misery? I just want to
Exactly.
get people and like, look at me. Don't do that. allow God to work through you and see the beauty in all of the mess, you know?
Yes,
You got
absolutely.
to. I mean, look at you now. You maybe not while you're going through it, always seeing everything, but afterward you can go
Mhm.
back, you said now, and you see how he got you through all those hard
Yeah,
days. And your
yeah,
kids are thriving,
I
you
know.
know?
It,
They
yeah,
didn't take that, oh, my mom and dad, they put us in this,
yeah,
I had that mentality. You kept them at a level where they always felt up. They didn't have to
yes.
feel at that
Yeah,
level.
and I mean, like I said, we did goofy things like the cantaloupe,
Yeah.
antelope stuff, and we did stuff like if they were grumpy or whatever, I would make them stand in front of a mirror and say, "I'm a happy boy" or "I'm a happy girl" 10 times
Hmm.
until they were laughing at themselves. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we did silly things like that, but it worked, and we listened
Hmm.
and listened and listened to, John Maxwell over and over and over again with
Hmm.
our kids, and my kids grew up reading those books,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
so it's just, I think,
Empowering them.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
not just, leaving them.
Looking at the negative of everything around them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
Kim, I just love your beautiful story, and I think it will inspire others. You think that sometimes there are people going through that, but your uniqueness of how you kept the positivity in it and didn't take the other route that you could have. But I love to ask my guests, what is something that you love to collect?
ooh. Okay. So non-tangible things would be experiences and memories.
Mm,
Everywhere we travel now, we do something that's unique.
yes, I do too. I do
Yeah.
that.
As far as things that like collections around my home or anything like that, Rob and I always pick up seashells or rocks wherever we go.
Mhm.
And of course, I'm on a farm, so chickens and cows,
Chickens.
yeah,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So, yeah,
yeah, I love that too. That resonates with me big time. I have jars of shells sitting everywhere. I did
yeah,
kind of bring it down, condensed it when we moved. I was like, okay, I can bring it into one thing
yeah.
instead of having so many everywhere. And then chickens. Oh, I've had my share of chickens. My hallway used to be just tubs of when I incubator, and do all
Oh,
the
yes.
hatching in the
Yeah.
spring. And that's all you heard in the springtime is all these chirping down the hallway till they were big enough to go outside.
Yep.
I had one cow.
Hmm.
We had a friend in my dad's church that had twins, and he needed it to get fed, so he brought it over
Sure.
for my granddaughters to experience the feeding of a cow and all.
Oh,
She was the beauty. She was so sweet, and we had her until she started getting really bigger, and we knew that we were not able to accommodate her in the way
sure.
that she needed, and plus us handling her, I didn't want anything happening because Tim was traveling at the time when I was raising the girls.
Yeah.
And so my hay guy, I was like, I know you raise cows, would you like to take this one and for my hay, and I would love to have her in a good place, not killed. I
Right.
want you to
Right.
raise,
Not
keep her.
food. Yeah.
No, not food, not food. And
Yeah.
so, because she's just, we love her. And he said, oh, yeah, yeah, she's beautiful. And maybe I can get some good calf off of her. She has produced for him the most
Oh,
beautiful
that's
cattle.
wonderful.
He says you can call her across the path and she'll come running. And his grandson got real attached. So I
Oh,
know she's sticking around
that's
and she's
awesome.
huge. But yeah, I can relate to the farm life. We had a great, God blessed us to getting to have to do that. And collecting those things real quickly. When you start having animals, you start wanting more because
Oh,
they're so
yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got like 20 chickens and 8 goats and
Mm.
3 cows right now because I've got 2 mama cows and then I've got a bull that we're renting. I didn't even know that was a thing because
I
I was
know. Is
not,
that not crazy?
I
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So we just like called up,
Sure.
it was another relationship thing, called up
Yeah.
a guy and said,
Yeah.
"Hey," and he said, "Sure, I'll drop him off." I was like, "Okay." So he's like
Oh,
hanging
my
out with my
goodness.
girls for a couple months, but yeah,
That's just nuts. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun. It's a lot
Well,
of fun.
I've enjoyed this so much.
I have to.
And thank you. I really appreciate it. You coming
Oh,
on.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it too. Absolutely love you.
I love. Thank you for joining my podcast today. We all have a story to share. Each story has purpose and makes an impact to you, the listener, creating a journey with passion and purpose. The journey we're taking is the journey within you. Please share with others and subscribe below.